Welcome to the Verum Epiphania podcast, a serialized reading of the audiobook Verum Epiphania. Episode 9. Chapter 22. The True Epiphany. When Stefan awoke and opened his eyes were dazzled by the brilliant light that filled his room. What a dream, he thought as he stretched and yawned, no doubt brought about by my bedtime prayers. But his excitement from the dream did not diminish in his waking like the dream itself did, because it was Christmas morning. He sprang out of bed and padded across the floor to his rime-frosted window. He rubbed at the frost and peered outside, blinking his eyes against the brightness. When his eyes finally adjusted to the light, his heart leapt. His prayers and his parents' wishes had somehow come true after all. The world below lay frosted beneath deep folds of sparkling snow. Hanging overhead was the comet, spooling out great lazy arcs of ethereal light that spanned the crystalline blue sky. The whole universe, it seemed to Stefan, had thrown in with the spirit of the day and decked itself out in the most delicate finery of the season. Here was, he thought, a true alchemical transmutation on the grandest possible scale. The entire world had been recast in the purest porcelain. It was, he thought, yet another Christmas miracle. He raced to wake his parents. When they looked outside at Stefan's urgent insistence, they were struck dumb at first, and then filled with an unspeakable joy and great reverence at seeing their Christmas wishes made manifest. All three of them knew that great blessings had been bestowed on them. This feeling of joy, like the radiant light from outside, would fill every corner of their cottage and permeate every moment of their Christmas celebrations throughout the blessed day. They breakfasted quickly and soon settled into opening their homemade gifts. Just when Stefan was modelling his last present, a spanking new stocking cap knitted overnight by his mother, there was an urgent and persistent knocking at their door. You can imagine their shock and surprise when they opened their door to find the eldest Baron standing on their snow-covered doorstep. In his hands was a parcel that looked very much to Stefan like the baker's cake box. On his head was his Magi-inspired hat. Behind him, in a great horse-drawn sleigh bulging with a veritable mountain of coal, were the Baron's brothers, also wearing their Magi hats and waving enthusiastically at Stefan's family. The great scientist bowed humbly before Stefan and his parents, and then regarded them with awe. "I apologize for intruding on your Christmas celebrations," he said with prodigious sincerity, "but I neglected to wish your kind and clever and remarkable son a Merry Christmas when he blessed us with his presence at our home yesterday." Then the Baron knelt in the snow, smiled at Stefan, and wished the stunned boy a very Merry Christmas. Next he rose and addressed Stefan's parents. In a quavering voice with an unmistakable tone of reverence, he told them he hoped that the day had brought them all the things they had wished for, which of course he already knew it had. To Stefan, it seemed as if the Baron himself had also been transmuted overnight. He was a different man than the one Stefan had met at the castle. Now the Baron seemed as radiant and glowing as the snow, but also showed a great humility. His parents returned the Baron's kind Christmas sentiments with equal enthusiasm. Then, recovering from his shock and remembering his good manners, Stefan introduced the Baron to his parents, and Stefan's father invited the famous dignitary inside. "Thank you very much," the Baron replied, visibly tickled beyond measure at the invitation. "That is very kind of you, but unfortunately I have far too many errands this glorious morning." "You see," the Baron said now, with a gleam in his eye that showed he was delighted to deliver such good tidings, "last night's unexpected storm was so driven that the snow reached the castle's furnaces and caused a tremendous steam explosion. The new calculating machine we had just completed," he said gleefully, "was completely destroyed along with all the castle's recent renovations. Miraculously, no one was seriously hurt, only a few bruises and scratches. Since we no longer need the obscene amount of coal we had selfishly squirreled away to power our calculating machine, my brothers and I are returning it to the coalman to help him distribute it, at no cost to anyone who needs it. From your chimney smoke, the Baron continued, I assumed that you burn wood to heat your excellent home, so there was another, much more important reason why I stopped here. As you might have guessed from my brothers and my festive headgear. The Baron paused here to take a breath and give Stefan a knowing wink before continuing. Which are, of course, in celebration of the wise magi in the nativity story, we come bearing gifts. Or at least, one gift. This, the Baron said as he grandly presented his parcel to Stefan, is for you. The boy's excitement quickly turned to curious perplexity when, after enthusiastically thanking the Baron, he opened the box to find the Verum Epiphania cake inside. It was indeed the very parcel he himself had delivered to the castle the day before. It's the cake I told you about, Stefan said with a mix of excitement and confusion as he showed the gift to his parents. Not quite, the Baron said, and rubbed his hands together in gleeful anticipation of his forthcoming revelation. It is the cake you delivered, but it has been transformed. It has been transmuted by powerful forces into something new and different and better. It now has, the Baron explained, an important and significant difference. Do you see it? Stefan and his parents carefully examined the cake and shook their heads. Then the trio looked to the Baron for enlightenment. Do you see the star? The great scientist asked urgently, nearly bursting with emotion. Or, more precisely, the star anise. Stefan now spotted and pointed out the 8-pointed spice to his parents. It was a solitary spangle nestled at the cake's top right corner. You added a star? Stefan asked. When the Baron answered, his voice was tremulous. No, I did not add the star. In fact, no person added the star. It was not touched by a human hand. Stefan and his parents looked curiously at the Baron. How is that possible? Stefan asked with wonder in his voice. The explosion last night, the Baron explained, shook the castle so violently that it sent jars of spice sailing across the kitchen. And a star anise landed there. Stefan nodded understanding about the star before he asked, still puzzled, but why give the cake to me? The Baron produced a handsome leather-bound book from inside his coat. At first, Stefan thought it was the Bible the Baron had used to summon the dragon at the castle, but then he noticed the gilded cross on the cover and realized it was an actual Bible. Did you know, the Baron asked, that anise is mentioned in the Bible? Stefan and his parents shook their heads. The Baron opened his book with a flourish and read with great enthusiasm and enunciation. Woe to you, scribes and hypocrites, for you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, but you have neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. The Baron closed his Bible. My brothers and I were reminded of this passage when we saw the cake this morning. After we considered these words, a great epiphany truly did take place at the castle. But it was not brought about by the machine we created. The great scientist hung his head. My brothers and I realized we had placed knowledge over wisdom in our pursuits. We had neglected to consider all the ancient wisdom, including this book, in our search for the truth. But your auspicious visit and the remarkable events that followed made us aware of our follies and the errors of our ways. It is you, my child, who has brought about a great epiphany for me and my brothers. This cake was fated for you. The Baron fell silent. My lord, it was Stefan's father who spoke now in a wavering voice. The star anise has 8 points. Do you know what an 8-pointed star symbolizes in Christianity? I'm sorry to say I don't, the great scientist said with sincere regret, and then looked at Stefan's father for enlightenment. Please, tell me, what does it symbolize? And Christianity, Stefan's father said. The 8-pointed star is called the Star of Bethlehem, and it is associated with the birth of Christ. The Baron laughed triumphantly and clasped his hands together. Verum Epiphania indeed, he cried. Now the scientist knelt once more in the snow to look fondly upon Stefan. Before I go, the Baron said, there is one more thing. These recent events, and especially meeting you, such a fine and intelligent and faithful young boy, have reminded me of another tale closely tied to the Bible. Tell me, do you know the story of Bel and the dragon? Stefan shook his head. It tells of the faithful youth Daniel from the Bible, who slayed a great dragon that the Babylonians revered. It is a cautionary tale against the sin of idolatry. Now the Baron beamed at Stefan, and his eyes sparkled. And can you guess how Daniel slayed the dragon? Stefan again shook his head. The Baron laughed with joy and clasped Stefan's shoulders. With a cake, my dear boy, he cried. With a cake! The Baron got back to his feet, wiped tears of joy from his eyes, and breathed a contented sigh of relief. Then, still radiating good cheer, the Baron said with the sincerest regret that he must be on his way. He again wished Stefan and his parents the very merriest of Christmases before he bounded back through the snow like an excited pup. Back at his sleigh with his brothers, he gave his team a ringing whistle, and the merry company flew away towards the village. Stefan and his parents watched until the Baron's sleigh drove out of sight. Before they returned to their Christmas, their hearts lifted even more by the jolly scientist's visit. That evening, as they gathered round the table for Christmas dinner, Stefan's family gave thanks for all their blessings. These included each other, the snow, the comet, the Baron, the food and cake, and for such a joyous and meaningful Christmas. Later, in the parlour, nestled cosily around a glowing fire, the family enjoyed the Baron's delicious chocolate cake. After they had thoroughly polished their plates clean, they fastened the cake's blessed star, which became a family keepsake beyond price, to the very top of their Christmas tree. Ever after, at each Christmas, Stefan's mother would bake the same cake, complete with Verum Epiphania, piped in scarlet icing on the top, and a star anise in the corner. Over the years, as their family grew, this tradition of baking a Verum Epiphania cake at Christmas time spread to their extended family and friends, and eventually throughout the entire village and beyond. The special cake served as a delicious reminder of the day young Stefan slayed a mighty dragon, and more importantly, and above all else, that Christmas was a celebration of the true Epiphany. Epilogue. The following spring, Stefan was puzzled when the Christmas snow melted to reveal not his wagon parked in the yard, but his sled. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Verum Epiphania podcast.